All right, welcome to round number one. We've got a little bit of a awkward hand here in the sense that we are lacking red mana. This white splash not really helping us at the moment. I think I'm still going to keep with a cycler on one, a cycler on two, and a couple lands. So basically have one extra land considering that we do not have the required red source. So we're going to need to go up to essentially 4 lands before we can actually, at 4 lands in hand I should say, before we can actually cast a Demonic Dread or Violent Outburst. Looks like we're up against Affinity. The good news about that is we'll certainly have a target for our Demonic Dread. Alright, so I can cycle this Carabid to see if I hit another 1-mana cycler or a different land, or we could just go ahead and cycle this Archfiend to be mana efficient. I think I like cycling the Carabid here. Makes both another cycler and a red source, a tapped red source, a good draw there. Looks like we missed, so we're just going to be playing this tapped and saying go. Obviously our opponent knows exactly what we're on now, if they're at all familiar with the deck, which I imagine they are. Living End quickly stops becoming a secret past turn 1, since you almost always had a cycler on the first turn. We get Gal Blasted, and there's a Ravager. Ravager is the worst case scenario for us. It's really bad. They get to bin a bunch of creatures, obviously, when they have a Ravager. So that is definitely a problem. Whenever you go to Living End, they can just sack everything to Ravager and then sack Ravager to itself and get their whole board back. Looks like we missed on a red source again, so we're just going to be passing here. There's some argument for Beast Within on the Ravager if my opponent's casting additional creatures. So with this signal passed on the stack, I'm pretty tempted to Beast Within the Ravager. I think I'm going to. And again, the biggest problem with this is that my opponent's just going to be able to sack their entire board when we actually go to Living End. And we don't have like a Macabre in hand or anything like that. Looks like they're going to put some amount of counters on their Ornithopter. Sure. Well, I think we're fine with that overall. Do have to worry about this beast helping a lot, and there's an Overseer. That's concerning as well. Really need to find that red source. If I cycle the Street Wraith, are we dead? That would be 4. This is only on artifacts, obviously, right? Yeah, only on artifacts. So 3 plus 4, 5. So 8 plus another 2 from the Battle Cry, so 10. So if I cycle Street Wraith and whiff, I'm dead. Is that worth taking the risk? Obviously, I can't cycle Archfiend and still have the land required. I could cycle Archfiend and hit Simian Spirit Guide, I suppose. I think I do need to cycle this Street Wraith. Because if I don't, well, that's not true, right? If I cycle the Archfiend, if it's 2 cards deep, and it's a Simian Spirit Guide, I'll still get there even if I cycle the Street Wraith. If it's 1 card deep, I get there anyway without cycling the Street Wraith, but then I die to Gal Blasts in the future. My opponent is sandbagging a card. I think I need to do this. I think going to below 4 is probably not. I guess More importantly, even below 3. We drew a Living End. Obviously doesn't work, so now I can hit Simian Spirit Guide. But only Simian Spirit Guide. Ceradon. Yep, looks like we weren't going to get there no matter how we played it. We're obviously not going to concede here. We'll make our opponent do it, but should not be very difficult. There isn't really a good way for them to screw this up. In fact, attacking with the Overseer is just as good as activating it in this spot. So, yeah, surprise, our opponent attacks with everything and activates the Overseer. And we take 10. Yeah, mana base certainly punishing there. We'll have to chalk that up to one game where the vault plan was not good. All right. So against Affinity, probably worth having this Grossing Grip. May not be. It's obviously a little slow. Engachewer is the immediate one we're excited about, of course. There's probably some argument for Fairy Macabre specifically because of the power of Ravager, as I said, which is a similar argument for stuff like Grossing Grip, of course, other than just hitting some of the more annoying targets. Shriekmaw not being able to hit artifacts puts it pretty far away from something that we want. Ricochet Trap and Leyline are also not really exciting. Beast Within is something we could consider, but again, not something I'm terribly enthused about. I'm willing to cut Archfiends here. I'm not sure I'm willing to cut, excuse me, Architects. I'm not sure I'm willing to cut the Archfiend. It is a little slow being a 2-mana cycler, but obviously it's quite good here. And even if our opponent has a situation where they've powered through with a Ravager, where they've kind of sacked their whole board, and then I Living End, and they got it all back, Archfiend can be really good in a spot like that. Karizev's also not particularly exciting. Fulminator is not bad here, since sometimes I need to deal with Ink Moths or Blink Moths, but I think I may want to shy away from this plan as well. It's obviously much less powerful than our typical Fulminator plan. I don't think that makes the Simian Spirit Guides... I mean, it certainly makes the Simian Spirit Guides worse, but not unnecessary. I still think I need them here. This is a matchup where we're kind of racing, so even if it allows me to do things in a slightly more explosive manner, that's probably for the best. Honestly, I think Beast Within is just better than Fulminator Mage here, so... probably do it this way. I would much rather be hitting like a Cranial Plating than blowing up a land. And I think the Macabres, again, are important specifically because of the Ravager. So maybe something a little like this. Yeah. We'll try it like this. All right. We're on basically 6 here with a Living End in our hand. But we've got a couple Ceradons, 3 lands, and a Macabre. Like, these are the kind of hands that I don't know if I can just ship more aggressively because I want... I mean, it's already a 6, so maybe I can. There's nothing wrong with these 6 cards, which makes me feel like it's kind of irresponsible to ship this to try and find a better 6. But maybe I want to mulligan more aggressively for Chewers or Beast Withins or whatever else. I think I'm supposed to keep this. I could fetch on 1 for the thinning. I think I will elect to wait. Just to protect my life total a little bit. I guess I've kind of got all the colors of mana I need, but I might want double black. Like getting a Blood Crypt off of this instead of a Mountain sounds pretty good, so I think we'll just cycle this, and then if I don't find a way to use the second mana next turn, I can just fetch EOT for a Blood Crypt, save myself some points while also making my mana a little bit better for the future. Vault Scourge, Ornithopter. Alright. Not too bad. Another Ceradon. Well, we found a way to use it anyway. So this turn I will fetch, especially now that I've found an Everroot Tomb. This turn I will fetch for a basic mountain before cycling, and then cycle both Ceradons. And hopefully we'll find a Dread Return or a Violent Outburst, and just have 18 power for our opponent's 18 life. And even if they do have like land, Arcbound Ravager, it's still not that bad for me because they'll sack their whole board. Then I'll Macabre the Ravager and like the Vault Scourge, and all they'll get back is an Ornithopter while I also get a Macabre, so we'll be on a 2-turn clock that way. Obviously, step number 1 is find one of our 8 Cascade spells, but I guess step number 1 is successfully pass the turn, but may have taken that one for granted. Obviously, we're at somewhat of a risk of drawing additional living ends, as we always are. Only 2 left in our deck, so if we were to draw those off the Ceradons, we'd be in a lot of trouble, especially without Karizevs in our deck, and especially against a faster matchup. Surely that would mean game over, most likely, unless our opponent's hand was just atrocious. So I still have yet to activate Vault of the Archangel. I guess I have failed to mention that I have hard cast a Leyline once. I'm not sure that was relevant. In fact, I think it likely was not super relevant. So currently still not a very big fan of the White Splash, and as I said, alluded to in the deck tech, if there was a change that I was going to make from this list, that would certainly be where I was looking first. I just kind of wanted to give it a fair number of games before I really gave up on it too early, since I think I already had some bias against it at the beginning. All right, Cranial Plating. Get a mountain here. Cycle. And cycle. Land and Chewer. Well, Chewer's definitely not bad to buy me some time. Can fetch like Stomping Ground DOT just to thin. I don't really mind paying that 1 life. Definitely doing this though. We will chew up that plating. Could have also fetched for like Swamp. Ugh. Swamp, use Semi-Spirit Guy, cast Macabre, which maybe would have been better in case they had like another plating. I might have to cast that next turn. Also means I should definitely not get Stomping Ground here, which I probably shouldn't have got anyway. I could get a white source here since additional... No, I definitely need... no, never mind. Yeah, it'd be like Godless Shrine over Blood Crypt, so I guess additional red source number 3, probably not super important. Would rather grab this in case I draw a Vault at some point, I guess. Alright, drew an Outburst, so now I don't have to worry about the whole cast Macabre situation. I think, I'm trying to think about the timing of when we're interested in doing this, and I think it's now. Waiting and then having my opponent, well, yeah, waiting and then having my opponent be like Glimmer Void or Spire into like Spell Pierce or Stubborn Denial or something like that would be a pretty huge beating, and I'm unlikely to catch these Blink Moths. I mean, I may, but, whoops, we need to play this forest first. I may, but that's seemingly pretty unlikely. Plus, if we resolve this, my opponent is in a pretty bad spot. I might as well just ensure that it's happening. Could macabre nothing here, or just this plating. Gonna get to chew this and have 21 points of power, so this actually doesn't make lethal anyway, so I won't do it. So we'll just cast this, not holding priority. Chew this, obviously. And that should likely be sufficient, even though it takes us a couple turns here, but we'll see. Yeah. That's why we main phase it, just in case they had some way to interact. No reason to take the risk, basically. Yeah. Don't really want to change much here. Hopefully we draw some more chewers. But we will remain as is. Perhaps I'm disrespecting the Fulminator a little bit too much if my opponent's keeping some of these slower hands. But any hand that's relatively explosive will punish me pretty hard for leaning on Fulminator, like I can in some matchups. So our hand's already a little land heavy, which is not great, obviously, for this deck. We see a lot of cards and cycle a lot of our spells, but obviously it's still a hand worth keeping. Double Ceradon into Outburst is fine. So I'm going to not cycle the Street Wraith yet and just lead on Mountain. There's nothing I can really do better with my mana other than just cycle the Ceradon anyway. I will probably cycle this at the beginning of my next main phase if I had to guess. Obviously, other things can influence that, but it could easily influence what land I play next turn, so. Another Signal Pest, sure. And a Ravager, yep. This draw is certainly much better for my opponent in this matchup. Again, Ravager, quite the pain. Last time we had the Macabre to deal with it, but this time we do not. There's a Chewer, so looks like we already have red mana. And I don't think there's I don't think there's a better turn than chew your Ravager, cycle Ceradon. So I'm not going to. I guess perhaps Chewer would be a better turn. Alright, we'll do this now. It's not like I have any fetch lands either. I'm not thinning anytime soon. Another land, okay. So, pretty sure I want to chew this. They probably don't sack anything, just put a counter on this. Could chew a Pest. Don't love that. Let's assume they put the counter here, and then they play another mana source, fire this up, attack. These will each be 1, these will each be 3, so 8. Plus this, sorry, so 9. But then we have this next turn, so. Yep, okay. Evoke this. It's especially important to kill this Ravager when my opponent can't put it on a Blink Moth. That could be slightly more painful for me. Hopefully they don't have another Ravager, I guess. Plating. So I'm going to take more than I accounted for. Or no, it's going to be close, actually. 4, 5, 6, 7. It's less, in fact. They do not have very many artifacts. So we're going to be in a really interesting spot here with the whole main phase discrepancy. My opponent, again, it's just not worth taking the risk, right? Like, we could try to catch more Blink Moths, and there's some likelihood that we actually get to, but to what end? Like, we might as well, especially drawing the Street Wraith, we might as well just do it now and ensure that it happens. So this is actually an interesting point of sequencing. We could either cycle the Earth now, or we could play Blooming Marsh and Violent Outburst, cast Living End, hold priority, cycle Street Wraith, so that we're less likely to hit Living End. I like cycle Street Wraith now because if I hit Demonic Dread, I'll do that instead of Violent Outburst. And also, I haven't seen any of my Living Ends yet, so I'm not like worried about drawing the last one or anything like that. Chew up this Ravager or Plating. I have no flying blockers, but my opponent's so light on artifacts. Should have figured this out already. 9, 12, 18, 21. So if I have lethal already, I should probably just chew this Ravager. Don't want to die to like land animate equip Galblast. 1, 2, 3, 4. That wouldn't be quite enough. I guess if it was Darksteel Citadel. Darksteel Citadel. Yeah, that's just not worth the risk. But they could, like, just as well put some stuff on here. I guess I also have this to pump to lethal even through this. I'm just going to chew the Plating. I feel like I'm way more likely to die if I chew the Ravager. And this can force through another 4 damage if my opponent only blocks one thing. Yeah, so they obviously get to eat the Plating. Our team irrelevantly gets pumped by this Violent Outburst. That's unfortunate. Oh no, okay, they have another Opal. Oh man, so would I have died the other way if I chewed the Ravager? Oh, that's brutal. That's brutal. I'll have to figure that out. Either way, I guess that's the end of our first round. I think I'm going to go back and check the replay, and I guess I'll discuss it a little bit at the beginning of the next round. But either way, I will see you then.